Good morning at the lakeshore. So let's begin with the prayer song. Open our eyes that we may see glimpses of truth you have for us. Open our eyes, illumine us, Spirit divine. Well, I'm out here again with my running elite buddy Billy, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the views on the YouTube channel. This will probably be the last live on Facebook. I'll be doing the live from YouTube as far as I know, and really appreciate all your support. It's been wonderful to see. And that channel is Harry Gregg, Greggmami with WITH. So we've been talking about church history in a sense with the early church and the demonstration of the love and power of God in the known world at that time, and the lack thereof at this time. We've been talking about the possible reason that is in terms of the power of God's Spirit in His people. But I have to also say that as a student of church history and as a teacher of church history, there's not a whole lot of times in church history where you see the outpouring of God's Spirit like happened. In fact, there's no times at the beginning of things. But there is, of course, the Reformation, when Luther realized that it wasn't about going to the Mass and not even having a Bible. And he wrote his 95 Theses up on the Wittenberg, nailed them to the Wittenberg wall. And the Catholic powers that be at the time, the religious leaders, they said, we're gonna excommunicate you. You're not a part of us anymore. They said, if you can cut back on this, then, but otherwise you're excommunicated. And Martin Luther famously said, well, if that's the case, this is where I stand. God help me. So then we have the Reformation coming in. Probably around the 1500s. And then what I want us to focus on most recently, a little bit more recently than that, is the Wesleyan revival. The Wesleyan move of God's Spirit in England. Boy, not too much more signs of that these days. But it was a powerful move of God. And I guess the beginning of that happens with John Wesley's testimony. He grew up in a very religious home, Church of England. His dad was a priest. He had a mom that watched over his soul every week, met with her 17 children and said, how is it with your soul? He was the one who said he was plucked from the fire, burning stick plucked from the fire when the parsonage house caught on fire, and he was saved. He's the one who formed the Holiness Club in England, dedicated to doing good and helping the poor. So obviously he was pretty close to God, wouldn't you say? But then he remembers his dad, Samuel, saying on his deathbed, he would probably tell his son, John, the most important thing he wanted to pass on to him in this life. And he told his son, who was studying to be a priest, Jackie, always preach the importance of the witness of the Spirit. And I believe that God put that word in John Wesley's heart even when he went over to Georgia, right? Went over to Georgia as a missionary. Not only was he a priest, but he was a missionary. Goes to Georgia to convert the heathen. And doesn't do so well there after refusing communion to some folks. And Governor Oglethorpe, the governor of Georgia at the time, asked him a couple of questions. He said, Wesley, do you believe that Jesus died for the sins of the world? He said, yes, I believe Jesus died for the sins of the whole world. But he said, but do you believe that he died for your sins? And Wesley said, yeah, I do. But he also said that those were empty words, bright, vain words. And then he goes back with his coattail between his legs, back to England on a ship that's tossed and turned in the storm and about to go down. And the Moravians, he notices, are there praising God and giving thanks in the midst of the storm. And he looks at them and he's convicted in his heart because this guy is afraid for his life. It's getting close to the end. And he writes in his journal later that I went to Georgia to convert the heathen, but who will convert me? Because he saw that they had something that he didn't have growing up all those years. So he gets back to England. His best buddy, Peter Bowler, a theologian, he talks to him and he tells John, he says, well, here's what you do. You preach faith until you have it. And then once you have it, you preach it all the more. So I'm sure Wesley took that to heart as well. And then, in God's timing, Wesley in his mid-30s went rather unwillingly to a prayer meeting, a kind of a seminar thing, where a commentary was being written, a commentary by Martin Luther on the book of Romans. And when he heard, the just shall live by faith, it went straight to his heart. And he says, I felt my heart strangely warmed. And then I knew that Christ had died not just for the sins of the whole world, but for my sins. And now I am victorious over all the things that I was not victorious before. Well, I'd say that the Spirit of God came into him, wouldn't you? And it's interesting in his journal because from that point on, there begins a tremendous move of God's Spirit in England. The forming of societies, people coming out of the denomination, the churches at the time, and forming into these groups, seeking the Lord. And we shall continue with that story on Wednesday.